All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. It's Wednesday, October 8th at 5 p.m., and we are at the Arvin Education Center for a special called board meeting. We have no changes to the agenda, so can I get a motion to approve? We can't change it. Yeah. Made by Ms. Sheffer, seconded by Ms. Hunley. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. We can't change the agenda, right?
I thought we were removing executive session.
We can just
We are,
not
but
go.
we can't officially change it as well.
Oh, I got you. How about I make the motion and then we just say no?
Okay, so we do have one change to the agenda. We are taking the executive session off.
Go ahead.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at this time, can I get a motion to approve the agenda without the executive session? Made by Ms. Sheffer, seconded by Ms. Hunley. All those in favor, and that's 5-0.
For clarification, is the executive session, do you all want to move that to next regular called meeting?
Yes.
Next week.
So we'll just move that to our regularly scheduled meeting on Monday. So with the removal of that, that takes us to our action item tonight, which is the discussion on moral instruction for KRS 158.200. Anybody want to kick us off tonight on that discussion?
I'll go first. My feeling on this, and has been from the beginning of it, is that KDE gives a list of standards that all school systems have to teach their students throughout the year. And there are times that we struggle to have enough time to meet the needs of all of our students, especially the ones that struggle and get behind. So I am not in favor of any organization, and LifeWise included with any of them. I don't care if it was the National Wildlife Federation that wanted to come educate kids about ducks. I don't think it belongs during the school day. I think FCA and other clubs meet before and after school, and I don't see the difference in this. And I have stuck with that stance and continue to stick with that stance that we need to keep our kids in the school during the school day. I also will always make the best decision I can with our teachers and staff in mind. And God love our front office ladies in all of our schools. They are rock stars and fantastic. If you have never sat in a school during the day and watched what all happens in a front office during the school day, it is busy enough as it is. And there's a reason why our kids don't go on field trips every week, because holy cow, it is crazy keeping track of making sure and counting and making sure everybody's accounted for. So I think for our front office staff, it would be a nightmare. I think for our teachers, it would be a hard time getting kids settled back in or in and out of class during the day. And the last thing I want is for any of our staff to dread coming to school on Wednesdays or whatever day of the week it is. So that is my stance on it, and my vote will reflect as such, and I've said that from the beginning. So,
because to clarify, the students 3rd, 4th, and 5th go at different times to related arts. So there would be 3 times out and 3 times coming back in. So that's 6 check-ins, check-outs for that administrative staff. Just to clarify, they don't all go at the same time.
Anyone else?
I'll go ahead and go. Let's go second, though.
Sure.
This topic, I kind of wrote some things out here, has stirred emotions in our community. The amount of animosity and hate I've personally received has been quite eye-opening. But the discussion is ultimately about supporting families and helping students grow into kind, thoughtful, and resilient individuals. Treating each other with respect and kindness shows students the values we hope that carry forward, which if I'm being frank, has not been demonstrated by many people in our community. True education inclusion doesn't exclude programs like LifeWise. Inclusion means giving every student access to opportunities and respecting parents' rights to guide their child's moral development. When schools make space for diverse values and perspectives, we strengthen, not divide, our communities. And finally, regardless of how the vote goes today, parents have the legal right under Kentucky law to have their child attend moral instruction during the school day.
I'd like to say, though, I just want to thank our teachers. They do a great job. My daughter has come home with certificate for leadership, for citizenship, for courage. I've seen the kids run through tunnels on certain days of the week at pep rallies. And I think our children are getting education and how to be a good person. And I don't want to say that LifeWise doesn't have great intent, but our children are receiving some really great input from their teachers and becoming better kids and citizens and friends. I've seen it with my own kids. So I just want to say, thank you to our current teachers who are in our current SPDM, current curriculum that is so focused on our children's development.
My concern would be just what Allison said with the 6 different touch points throughout the school day. That's 3 times picking up, 3 times dropping off. It is the potential for a massive logistical nightmare, in my opinion. And I like LifeWise. I think that the program that they're offering sounds wonderful. It's not that. To me, it is more about protecting our staff. We as a board have spent a massive amount of time and money on teacher raises, staff raises, and to ask them to take on more, in my opinion, it goes against all of what we've been working for the last 3 years. I was just up at Kenwood Station a week ago in their office for 5 minutes, and the people that come in and out that are with one person, one office staff member, it's UPS, FedEx dropping off, picking up. There was a kid within 5 minutes that had a nosebleed. Just multiple things that are going on, and I just can't even imagine asking someone to facilitate. We had a speaker last month who said that they had visited a LifeWise program that had 400 out of 600 students from one particular school attending in the one day. I don't know who we can ask to facilitate that, unfortunately. And I'm all about moral instruction. I am. It's not going against that. I'm a Christian. I believe in having access to all of that. It is not that. It is more about the logistics for me.
I want to add a couple of what I think are helpful, needed clarifications for the community, because Adam, like you, I do feel like several things have popped up in the conversation that need to be rightly challenged and need to be clarified in the community. The first thing that I want to say is that, and it doesn't matter to me who's in front of me. I'm going to say, I've said this, I'll say this openly, it doesn't really matter. A parent's right to pursue moral instruction for their child is not up for debate. That's just not up for debate. And these are well-established rights at the federal and state level. You can disagree with what a parent chooses. That's your right. But people have privately held beliefs because they've arrived at those privately held beliefs on their own, under the freedom that they already have. It's intrinsic. It's well established. Opinions on what avenue one parent chooses versus another parent's choice is completely irrelevant. There have been opinions expressed in this board that are frankly out of place. It's irrelevant. When you're trying to make a logical argument, it doesn't matter to me what you think about that person's privately held religious belief. And it shouldn't matter. That's a logical fallacy. And it's sort of like sad to me that people don't know how to make an argument without attacking somebody else's beliefs. I feel people have been slandered. I feel people have been attacked. And so I'll save it there. Religious liberty is also not on the ballot. I can say without question, the majority of people that are in my district have expressed they're not in favor of, approving this. And that's something to consider. However, it's not up for a vote necessarily, right? It's not up for a vote. Religious liberty is not on the ballot. Most people have said what they expect me to do specifically is to demonstrate that I've thought through it carefully and clearly. And I think that's our job. And so I think the Oldham County School Board, I'm not just throwing shouts out to ourselves. I think we have demonstrated prudence to carefully think through this decision. I stand by that. I don't apologize for that. And one of the school board charters is that school board members don't come up here and make speeches. That's not the rule. So I am a little bit long in what I'm saying. I understand that, but at the same time, I want our students, frankly, I want our teachers, I want our parents, I want all of you here tonight to show that we have carefully thought through the issue. And I don't want to leave here tonight without clearly expressing that KRS 158.200 has done a great disservice to Oldham County schools and parents who would like to pursue moral instruction for their children all over the state of Kentucky. I hear the point that parents have the right to pursue moral instruction, but big government has inserted itself into the day-to-day operations of schools and severely hindered parents' freedom. Parents and pupils enjoyed 35 years of quiet, peaceful pursuit of moral instruction. The 2025 General Assembly appointed itself as the gatekeepers of moral instruction, adding unnecessary layers of government approval. By amending the previous release time statute, the legislator has actually and ironically hindered parents' rights and put the school board, frankly, I just feel like we've been in an impossible situation this whole time. We've been in an impossible situation. This is a lose-lose situation for the Oldham County School Board. And it's because we've been put in a position to make a decision that's well outside the scope of our authority. Parents' rights to pursue instructional freedom have been greatly hindered. And to me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to stick to the facts. Previous iterations of release time law gave parents and students greater personal freedom. Parents and students could pursue moral instruction via the release time law rightly from respective places of worship or some other suitable place to receive moral instruction in accordance with their religious preference of pupils in mind. That was the previous statute. The AG noted that the amended statute repealed those phrases, and by doing this, I really personally feel that parents' rights and desire to pursue moral instruction has been relegated to a local school board by the simple statement of, school boards shall allow the students to be excused and to attend district-approved moral instruction program. I think that's a gross overstep of the government, and I think they've placed that burden unnecessarily on this school board and school boards all over Kentucky. And so it operates well outside the school board authority as well. The government is not to establish a provision against a parent's rights to provide children moral instruction. This legislature, and I can't speak to the intention, I can't speak to any other factor, but it has reached far into the day-to-day responsibilities of a parent and the day-to-day operations of our district. We've just been put in a position to decide on matters that are not within the scope of our responsibilities. I don't feel that's right. And any mention that a parent could pursue and a pupil could pursue moral instruction from their respective places of worship or some other suitable place to receive moral instruction in accordance with their religious with the religious preference of pupils have been replaced. And what has the government replaced it with? More government. That's just very ironic for me. I make no apology, I'm a Christian. I'll say that before you now, without apology. I'm also conservative. So it's quite ironic to me that the authors of this legislation would act in such a way to overstep and create unnecessary boundaries for people to pursue freedom. So I feel in a place that I cannot vote for this because I'd be participating in an overreach of government. And I as a parent, would be really frustrated that my rights have been cut off. And though I directly provide moral instruction to my kids via church. That's what we do.
I just want to make sure I understand. I think parents still have the right to check their child out for moral instruction.
Yeah.
That still stands, regardless of our vote today. What I think you're talking about is these laws have been put in, like, I know, let's just talk about instructional hours. 30 hours, I think we figured out, of lost time. And let's just say a child loves art, and that child's not going to LifeWise. That child, to my understanding, cannot go to that related arts. And that child is missing out on something that's very passionate to them, and it has nothing to do with the child who's going to LifeWise, but the law says that no instructional time can be missed. It's pretty much if you're here and don't go, you're in study hall. And that's 30 hours of instructional time lost for a child who might really love those related arts and need that in their life. But I do want to say, like, parents still can check their child out. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying, right? Okay, that is not changing.
Right.
That,
It's just-
I am saying that. I'm
Okay.
saying the updates,
Have made it harder.
the,
Yeah.
the updates have made it unnecessarily challenging.
Right.
For what reason? For what, why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So what did we do? We go backwards on personal liberty? We go backwards on religious liberty? That makes no sense to me. It's insane. And so, I mean, I don't know, maybe, yeah, I don't know.
I agree
To
with
that
you.
point, though, something is kind of awkward in the instruction, because if a student decides and a parent decides that they want to pursue this avenue, and they're not held responsible for late work, et cetera, okay, that's one thing. But then it's like the other students can't proceed either.
It's hindering them, yeah.
So
Their
it's like you
education.
can't make progress, like you can't get ahead because other people want to choose a different thing. I don't know, that seems really awkward to me.
So it was my understanding that the AG's opinion with this particular statute said that we do not have to excuse that absence for moral instruction, but it would still be a constitutional right for the parent to check the student out for moral instruction.
Yeah.
And so I don't think any of us are saying that we wouldn't excuse that particular absence. And also, just to clarify, we did try to come up with some other options, not just for LifeWise, but any organization with this particular request, where, they could do it before school, after school. We even talked about potentially having like one time slot at the end of the day where students would be picked up, say at 2 o'clock, taken to their moral instruction, and then parents pick them up after that, just so there was one, like, less of a disruption. But that was not of interest to this particular organization that put in the application. So for me, I'm just not willing to do the 6 different touch points with one school in one day, and then it's not just that organization. If we have 10 other organizations that decide that they want to do the same thing, how does that possibly work?
Yeah, this is a precedent. If we allow
It
one that
really
we might
is.
even agree with,
It really is.
then we might not agree with the next one, and that will have to stand, that will have to go. They will have to have the option.
And I hope everyone understands how this has been such a difficult decision, and the discussions that we've had have been very difficult. And, I've said it 1,000 times, this is what is keeping me up at night. And, it is an important decision, and like you said, it's a precedent. So it is very difficult. But we are doing, the best that we know how to do in this position. So we understand that this has divided our community almost, and that's just unfortunate. It really is. We hate that, but we're hoping that we can make this decision and that we can move on and continue to do wonderful things for our students.
And thank you for the clarifications to my statement. I think what I want to say is agree with everything you said. It's difficult. It's felt like an impossible decision. And I think the point of if I wanted to say what I was going to say in a second, it's just completely unnecessary. It's just completely unnecessary that we've had to spend time thinking about this. Where before the updates, we didn't have to.
Sure. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it has become, more about religion and politics than it should be, when it really isn't about any of that. It's about logistics. Anybody else have anything?
Well, I mean, I'll add like lost instructional time. I mean, I think that's different ways to look at things. I would never expect a teacher, or a teacher would want to put their kid in a study hall. I think that time could be leveraged for enrichment activities, intervention, remediation, passion projects, especially when you have a lower student-teacher ratio. So I think that's a time that you could lean into kids during that open time, but just, I wanted to make that point.
No, I
I
think
would
that's a
never,
fair point.
ever say, yeah, study hall. I think that would be a complete waste of time
Sure. No,
um,
I agree.
for the kids who remain.
Yeah, I know you weren't
But if
saying
they're
that.
set for like art, there's not much they could do other than,
They
I mean,
would
there's
mi-
teachers have
They
planning
would miss that one
periods.
day if it was related to arts.
Right.
Depending on if that's how they schedule it. I think our schools can get crafty, and I have faith in problem solving if that was assumed that what the school wanted to do. And I would, honestly, from this position, I don't think me as a board member should tell a school whether they should have it, or I think it should be that school's decision. I don't want to come from here with whatever I vote and say, if I vote yes, I expect every school to do this. I think that really needs to be an individual school, and whether that will work with their staff, whether the principal, and whether SBDM wanted that. So,
I think
because I don't
those
think
are all,
that's our position to force that.
right, I think those are all very fair points. And, for me, if I had a particular school asking us to do this, even if I had one school, but I haven't been able to find that. So, I've been met with a lot of concerns that are all logistical, really, so.
On the liability conversation, I think that's important. That's what's kept me up at night too. And I think what's been very impossible in this decision is you have two conversations going on. You have a statutory change, and then at the same time, you had a group that applied previously. And so really at the same time, you're having to make two decisions, which I think that's just a recipe for disaster. So what I'm saying is independent of anyone who's applied. What I'm saying now is independent of anyone who's applied. If the worst happens, for me, that's where I start. What's the worst? Is that school bus, that bus, or that means of transportation is in an accident? And the hold harmless, non-indemnify, things like that. When a parent is suffering an injury to their child, or worst case, even beyond that, it's expecting a lot for that parent to act reasonably. Hold on, we're not liable. Hold on, you agreed not to indemnify. It's just asking a lot. And then what level of coverage would be enough? I don't know. What amount is
Well,
that?
I'm pretty sure this one was $5 million,
It's $5
and that's
million.
not for the entire state of Kentucky, which is nowhere close to being liable for what we could sign off on and I would feel comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah, so what amount could that be,
I
right?
don't know.
I know,
but it
but that's
couldn't
what
be
I'm saying,
five.
like it's,
Can you put a price, like?
but that's what I mean though,
But
but that's what I mean, but at the end of the day, like, we're responsible, right? Like but again, we're being asked to make the decision, so I guess what I'm saying is, it's not like we can hold ourselves harmless. Like, we're being asked to decide on it, and that's very difficult to do. And then even from, again, like, somebody trying to politicize that moment by them not even being directly involved in the accident, but then would want to name Oldham County Schools in a lawsuit, even though our policy could be clear, even the process of getting dismissed as a named defendant, that would even be costly. So it's very difficult.
I'm just going to be the
It sure
devil's advocate. There's probably lots of things that we put ourselves, or the county, at risk at, based on the opportunities that we give students, though, too, in general.
But we don't give them to outside businesses.
That's the key.
We
Kids co-op, I'm just saying, like, we could talk about liability when students leave co-op, they travel to downtown Louisville, driving on the interstate. Like, there's all kinds of things, field trips, like, it's not just exclusively to
Yeah,
I mean, we have
understand.
that, so I'm just being the advocate there, the devil's advocate.
No, I understand.
No,
But good point. I mean, I don't disagree with you. It's just, there's also all those other things that put us, or put the county and people at risk for various
Sure.
things,
So
or
what-
opportunities.
I agree.
So we received a lot of emails from both sides, and I don't know, no one was nasty to me personally, even when I replied back and told them that I wasn't voting for what they asked me to vote for. Nobody was rude about it. But, I mean, you ran a poll, and I think it was 62.5% strongly opposed it.
Yes, it was 60% who opposed and about 25% who supported it.
Well, I think it was 62.5% strongly opposed, and another 12 opposed it. But
I'd have to go back. and
I haven't-
It was like 60-25 is just the numbers off top, and then there was the in-betweens.
yeah, so, I don't know. I mean, did
But-
you
yeah, by
put the
majority,
poll
but
up
then
just for fun, or?
I did that to poll people, to hear from people more than the people that speak at the meetings. We obviously weren't doing anything as a board, so I took it upon myself to make the poll. I was very clear. It was well-received by some, not received by some others. But it also gave me feedback, and I was able to, I think, get 300 people that I would not normally have gotten received. So I don't understand why there's an issue with that.
Oh, I don't think there's an
Okay.
issue with it. I was just pointing out that the strong majority opposed it, and it doesn't seem like the poll results matter to you.
No, it does, but it also means that 25% people, based on the decision today, are going to be left out, and we just don't represent the majority. We got to look at the whole county and the families in our community.
Correct.
Well, I
That-
think
I mean,
that's,
that's,
yeah, I think
yeah.
that's why it's been such a difficult decision, just because there are so many different opinions, and we realize that our decision today is going to make some people happy and some people not very happy, and so that's why it's so difficult for us. There are good points on both sides. So I understand that.
well, and I will also say on that information I've got, a lot of the arguments on the people who opposed were really a lot of discrimination and anti-religious, which kind of like, for me, is kind of like, I'm not going to take that into consideration just because of their viewpoint.
Or they were
And
anti-religious?
Either anti that, or maybe it was different beliefs than they, because it's a certain denomination of Christianity. And to me, that in itself is discrimination, because it was that kind of a Christianity.
Was there a spot on the poll for people to say that, or are you just talking
No,
about
there
the
was just an
emails
open
that you got?
summary of like feedback and responses and stuff.
I
But,
didn't do a poll, but
but
the
then it-
emails. I received a lot of people with like very
Was-
strong pastors, PhDs in religion. A lot of members of the community were against it as well. So I could see there's both sides of that. There might be anti-religion, but also very pro-religion, just for their life, their livelihood, were against it as well. And I didn't do a poll, I just
Yeah,
had
it was
emails.
just
And
different
thank you to
beliefs.
everyone who emailed us from both sides. I mean, that was a lot of emails, but it was very eye-opening, and I don't know if I replied to all of them, but I tried, but it was just such a great community response that so many people are involved. So thank you for all of those.
For sure. Go
Uh,
ahead. Go
I don't know how
ahead.
much, well, I just, as a school board member, I want to speak on the perspective of my responsibility as a school board. I also have my own personal beliefs. And then that's something that we all have to balance here on the stage or as a representative of the county. Reminds me to act with integrity, fairness, and respect, whether it's just the majority people, but inclusive means everyone, not just because of the 60%. And that also means our decisions can't be based solely on my personal beliefs. That must, so that can impact everyone. And I'll be honest, personally, I see the value of moral instruction and the benefits it can bring. I understand why parents want this, that 25%, not to mention how it could help address the mental health challenges many of our teens face. But I also know that parents and teachers feel strongly against it, all right? I've read your emails. I've listened to their concerns, and I recognize that moving forward with a yes vote could create division and tension in our schools and our community, which is the last thing I want. At the same time, a no vote could mean some students and families lose out on this opportunity. And that's the ultimate dilemma that we are kind of presented with, which, agreeing with Mr. Sedilla here, is that I don't necessarily think that is not fair for us to make that decision.
Right.
So As a board member, I have to weigh both the potential benefits and potential harm. My priority is to make sure our schools remain welcoming for every student, regardless of the background or their beliefs. Some of the concerns I've heard include fears of peer pressure, bullying, from what I've observed and experienced. I also think that could even come from the opposing side. While some worry that their child might be, recruited into religious moral instruction, I'd be more concerned about the pressures and influences students face from society at large than being recruited into a religious-based instruction. But ultimately, the supporting policies that families guide their children for moral instruction on their own terms, while keeping maybe schools neutral spaces, and it might best serve our community until the current laws change.
Thank you for that.
I'd rather be uniting than dividing and making decisions with that respect to all students and parents
I
and
agree.
families.
Any other points you guys want to make, or are y'all ready to vote? We're good?
Yes.
Okay. So can I get a motion to not approve the application put forward by LifeWise Academy to provide instruction offerings for students in Oldham County schools?
I'll make a motion.
Made by Ms. Sheffer, seconded by Ms. Hunley. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Made by Ms. Hunley, seconded by Mr. Cedillo. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Thank you, everyone, for coming.